people, and thanks for coming back to another Velo podcast. My name is Mike Levy, and today I've got Alvin Holbrook and Josh Ross with me, head aerodynamicist, by the way, but we're going to get to that later. We're going to cover a ton of new bikes and tech stuff today. I have so many questions for these guys. At the end of the show, we're going to try to get to some Unbound safety issues. Now that we're a week and a bit away from the Unbound race, there's definitely been some interesting information that's come up, and apparently some of it was quite dangerous. So we're going to go beyond the racing and beyond the new bikes. Alvin spent a bunch of time in Spain recently riding that new DT Swiss suspension fork for gravel bikes. We're going to get to that. Actually, Alvin, let's just jump right into it. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. First,
a lot.
I very briefly spend 30 seconds. Tell me how you're doing today.
Unrecovered from the Traca and Unbound and other stuff. Unrecovered, but very happy to be here. I love you.
Busy times, for sure. Yeah. Josh Ross in the Pacific Northwest. How are you doing today?
Oh my God, I melted on Sunday. We chatted and it's not supposed to be 100 degrees when I'm riding. It's not supposed to be a degree per mile that I'm riding. It was
it was 100 degrees?
Yeah.
In Portland?
Yes. It was so hot here. I was on a ride. I sent Josh the photo. I was on a ride, and the photo that I sent him, it's just my legs from my knees down in the river with my fancy shoes and socks on, just soaking wet, trying to desperately cool off so I could get home. So hot. I don't do well in that. I melt.
What the heck?
I usually do all right, but it was a rough ride. I did some climbing, and but pro tip, everyone: add ice to your hydration pack. It is godsend.
You're riding with a hydration pack. Is it because you're just not stopping on those big days?
Yeah.
I love stopping.
Yeah,
You're not
I
stopping?
have some friends that say cake in the middle is a mandatory stop, but I disagree. I'm here to ride. I got things to do at home.
Okay.
Especially when it's that hot, it's good to bring the backpack for sure. I nearly brought it with me yesterday, and then I didn't do it, and I regretted it. So ended up filling up in a couple of rivers, and hopefully I don't get Giardia for the fourth time, but I'll give you guys the update on that next week.
Or is that a type of salad? Just kidding.
Sort of. Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Okay, Alvin. A while ago, we talked about that new DT Swiss F132 ONE gravel suspension fork, but at the time it was still under embargo. You had traveled to Spain to race the Traca 100, where you raced it on that gravel suspension fork on a canyon. So now we get to talk about how this fork actually feels. First off, though, what is with the name? F132 ONE? Do they mean anything, or is it just trying to sound fancy?
Yeah, so for people not looking at this, the F132 are numbers, and then one is spelled out as one. And, I asked a lot of questions, and that was one that I didn't ask. Partially because I knew that, the XC fork is the 232.
Yeah.
And that's it. I've really... Usually my curiosity knows no bounds, and this is one where I stopped, unfortunately. I have no idea why. Well, DT Swiss has a lot of numbers everywhere. Yeah. To be fair.
They do. Yeah, a lot of their stuff is like that, and I find it confusing, but it makes it look high-end. Just the name looks high-end, so
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's what they're doing. Is it fair to say that you're generally pro gravel suspension?
I wasn't for the longest time until I used this. I have always felt that gravel suspension can be kind of finicky, and it kind of loses, it gets rid of kind of one of the things that you like about a gravel, that I like about a gravel bike, which would be just the inherent simplicity of it, compared to a mountain bike. But suspension fork is pretty, specifically this one, pretty rad.
Yeah. You said in your article, this is your first ride article, that you went from meh to, oh, this is cool about gravel suspension in general. So I want you to tell everybody listening what changed.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, frankly, has to do with the lever that DT Swiss uses. And it's not just any like remote lockout lever. It's that they've had to design the damper around to make the remote lockout lever work. So basically, unlike a lot of gravel suspension where you have to reach down to the fork crown to adjust it, this one has a lever, you press it and it unlocks, you press it again and it locks. It's not like a push-pull thing. It is a push, 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 push. And that makes it really easy to flick it on and off without thinking too hard about it. And I am not ever going to be in the situations of these like elite gravel race pros where I need to stand up and sprint to finish and at like a high level. But being able to do that easily without worrying about whether it's going to work, or worse yet, removing a hand from your handlebar to flip the lever, is pretty darn convincing to me.
A lockout like that, what they're doing internally, I assume, is they're shutting off an oil path. Oil doesn't compress.
That's
so when the oil path is shut off, the fork doesn't compress. But the push to lockout and push to unlock is different than any other suspension fork out there, Alvin. How are they doing that?
Yeah, so I've got an example in the first ride. We've got a video. I have like a breakdown of them pulling it. So basically it's cable actuated still. But instead of it moving like a door or I'll just say like a door for the oil, like open and closed, it's basically every time you pull the cable, it's actuating this like X almost. And like you actuate it and it moves 45 degrees, which opens the oil path. And then you pull it again, it rotates the thing 45 degrees again, and it closes it.
So I'm picturing a circle valve with like 2 or 4 openings on it at different degrees, and it basically just turns, it rotates each time you push the lever, and it closes or opens the window.
Precisely. Yeah. It's think of it, I mean, you can visually think of it kind of like a windmill that is actuated. Like every time you pull the cable, it rotates that 4-sided windmill almost.
Okay. So when the fork is open, how does it feel?
Like it is tuned quite a bit towards small pump compliance, I would say, and it does a really good job of that. You're not really sitting into any amount of sag as far as I could tell. And just like off the top, super duper like soft, I would say. To the point where like if you stand up and pedal, you're immediately feeling like you're kind of like falling into something a little bit. But it ramps up pretty quick. It's only
riders listening right now don't like hearing that. That turns people off.
Well, that's why you've got the lockout.
Okay.
That's why you've got the lockout. It ramps up pretty darn quick. I never thought I like bottomed out ever that whole time, but like my O-ring was definitely like at the fork crown, like at the end of the ride, which leads me to believe that I did bottom it out at least once. But like the end result basically is if you're going downhill on something, there's just so much more grip on the front of that front tire than you would ever expect. We talked about this a little bit before, but I was essentially on slicks. They're Schwalbe G1 RS Pros, which are slicks for all
speed
intents
gravel
and purposes.
Tires.
Yeah, very, very fast slicks. But way more grip and just the ability like through the rocks and the ruts to just track through that means that you're just so much more confident. And I am not the most confident descender like in those situations, but I was able to kind of just do what I needed to and make sure my lines were decent, but not necessarily perfect. And I think that helps quite a bit too. The other place is where it really, you'll feel it is, let's say you're just kind of tracking, you're going fast and you're in a group and you can't choose your optimal line through something every time. And so the times that you might hit like a rut or something like that, and it kind of like the front of the bike gets disturbed, and so maybe you like get bucked up out of the saddle. That doesn't really happen here, even though the back of the bike is pretty rigid. yeah, like I was able to, like, I felt like I was about as fast as I could be, like on the fast bits of the Tracker. Yeah, just faster in most places, and then I could lock it out and I could sprint.
I will say that it's obvious that it's going to be like more control, more comfort, faster on the downhills. But like what I always try to tell people who aren't sure is that on flat gravel roads, even just with like little pea gravel, kind of like, you know, it's maybe not like mirror smooth. You could go faster with the suspension fork. It's taking way less out of you. And you could also run lighter duty tires or even smaller tires if you wanted to, because you have the suspension fork, like you said. So it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the skepticism for suspension on a gravel bike like is warranted, and I will continue, frankly, to have a lot of that skepticism. But this is the first time where I'm like, oh, this makes sense, and I could use this on my own gravel bike.
Yeah, yeah. Could you tell me about the cable routing on this thing, because it's kind of neat.
Yeah, so it's, as far as I can tell, it's the first officially routed, like, first official fork, because I've seen a lot of these gravel forks that have been drilled at the steer tube to like use fully internal cable routing. This one's designed for it, which is pretty rad. Like, it comes out of the fork crown. Well, it comes out of the base of the fork crown, and so like you route the cable internally through the bars and through the like head tube, and it comes out and it routes behind the at least the brake does. It routes behind the non-drive stanchion, basically, and lowers.
Nice and clean and Aero.
Yeah, super clean. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way of getting around the fact that like a bigger fork is going to be less aerodynamic at higher speeds. But it looks very clean.
I just want to say, I know I've said this a million times before, but like that matters to literally like 500 racers, you know, in North America. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. The thing is, gravel bikes are so sketchy, Alvin and Josh. They're so sketchy. Like, they're always on the edge of traction. They're always just ready to spit you high side, or you're always almost low siding all the time. I just can't understand why. Yeah, I just can't understand why everybody is okay with being so sketchy. Just
my brother in bikes, like not everyone's in Squamish, dog. Like that's the thing. That's the thing. And like a lot of Unbound, for example, like, I mean, I haven't ridden the full courses myself, but a lot of Unbound's pretty smooth. Like,
you need a gravel fork on all of that. Nah,
so
I don't believe
I have
you.
ridden the Tracker. And I'm specifically curious that of all the gravel things I've done, the Track is not the one where I would be like, oh yeah, suspension fork. I just changed my mind and I decided I need a suspension fork for that ride. It's pretty smooth, the whole thing.
I mean, my situation was that it was rainy and muddy, and so the added grip was really beneficial. So that's
true.
That's
I also
why.
raced it in the rain, and it was sketchy. But I had 45s, and it did okay.
Yeah, it didn't help that I was on 40s. Thanks, Canyon. They're like, yeah, these tires probably aren't the best. And I was like, oh, you think? Like, but the fork really helped out. And importantly, when I wanted to put the power down and go faster, I could, because I had the narrow, slick tire.
Even if it's super smooth too, anytime anybody is out for that amount of time, you're just going to be more comfortable no matter what. Anyways, I think we're still like a few years away from gravel forks being everywhere, but I think I'll be proven right. I don't know.
I bounce back and forth on this all the time because like I reviewed that Cannondale and I'm like, yeah, full suspension or front suspension, whatever you want to say about that bike. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I have ridden a lot of those lefty forks and I love the front suspension. But then I'm just like, I rode the Tracker without suspension. I ride gravel all the time without suspension. It's fine. I'm not in need of more.
Yeah, no, it is fine. Part of gravel is being
just
uncomfortable
that it's more
too.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more fine.
I'm the
with
king
the
of more
suspension
fine, but I don't know.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, yeah, we don't need to get into it. I thought it was pretty sick And as soon as the partnership between Canyon and DT Swiss ends, I'm gonna like request one in for myself
What
for
is that
review.
partnership, Alvin? That's what I was going to ask you. Can you explain what's going on? When can we get one of these forks?
Yeah, so the partnership ends at the end of 2025, and it's between Canyon and DT Swiss. And the reasoning being is that Canyon was like the story goes, according to Canyon, and DT Swiss was there too, that they wanted specific characteristics from a gravel suspension fork. They didn't necessarily outline what it was, but it was clear enough that like none of the existing options out there met their like requirements, and so they whatever those might be.
Bullshit on that, but whatever.
So they hit up a bunch of these brands and asked for like if anyone could do it, and DT Swiss was the one that they went with.
To be fair, now that I said that, Alvin, to be fair, the cable routing is quite different, and the fork crown is quite different, and it does visually look different than what's out there. So that does set it apart. You're right.
Yeah, and then the other thing that, I mean, I just know this off the top of my head, like the RockShox Rudy, you can only get in 2 offsets. You can get in a 45 offset and a 51 offset, and this fork comes in a 56 offset, specifically for the Canyons.
There you go.
So that is probably at least one other thing. I don't know if that's the case for the likes of MRP or Fox or what have you. Keene Creek.
Yep. Okay. All right. Let's move on to some prototype bikes, because at Unbound there was more than just racing. There was a whole bunch of unreleased stuff as usual. So you can see it on the Velo homepage. Check out all the photos and everything of all the bikes. We're going to talk about the new prototype Specialized, possibly new Diverge. They're not saying what it is, but it sure looks like a new Diverge that showed up on Instagram under Sofia Gomez Villafane and Matt Beers. They're usually on the crux, Alvin. So what's with this bike? What's different about it?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it doesn't look all that different.
It
right?
doesn't.
Like,
yeah, that's true.
I will say, like, I was in the car, so can I just say, like, in general, Unbound, for gravel and drop bar stuff, and just gravel specifically, like, it's got to be the biggest, like, single event tech-wise in the US. Like, there's just so much going on. And even at like the Unbound Expo, like there were new launches that were there, like, which was, I don't know, it was for me it felt more exciting than Sea Otter, for better or for worse. Yeah, it doesn't look any different. The story for me goes that social media guru Hannah and I were in the car early Tuesday morning, and we're going to an appointment to meet an elite rider to film these videos. And I just see someone riding by on this McDonald's colored bike, like, because that's what this is. It's like red and yellow lettering, and I'm like, that bike's completely different. That bike, what is that bike? Like, Spidey senses were tingling, and it ended up being the Diverge. It doesn't look any different, except you look at the tire clearances, and it is different, and that's kind of the big giveaway. Besides all the pros, Specialized or that are sponsored by Specialized are riding the exact same bike.
Okay.
So those are the big giveaways.
Possibly an updated Future Shock as well?
Yeah. So I actually talked with, hopefully this doesn't get him in hot water, but I actually got to talk with the mechanic for Sophia and Annika Langvard. And I met him at the Tracka, and we talked for a little bit, and he's a homie. And we talked a little bit more. He says that it's using the Future Shock 3.0, which is the Future Shock from the Roubaix, as opposed to the 2.0, which I believe the current Diverge uses. And I'd have to double check that. But it gets an updated Future Shock. It's still adjustable at the top of the stem.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like not major updates, but tire clearance especially much appreciated.
It definitely swallowed the 50 mil tracers that basically everybody was using on race day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like 55 mil tire clearance or something like that. That would be my guess. It looked like it still uses Shimano threaded bottom bracket. It still had kind of the flexi seat post system. No seaming suspension there. If it did, it was in the frame.
All right. And I imagine this bike is going to be actually released soon, because when these teams are out there using this stuff, especially at a race like Unbound, to me, that means it's, it's within some months, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, most of these pros are riding like Cruxes. Like it seems like when given the choice, that's the bike that they're riding, now a Diverge or a Diverge STR or something like that. And so to have this kind of mass effort from Specialized at least tells me that it's got to be around the corner.
Yeah, they obviously weren't trying to hide it with that paint job.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah. Josh, let's go to you for something completely different. We're going to make a giant left turn here and go from new gravel bikes with suspension to prototype Aero bikes that look like they're from 20 years down the road. Tell me about this Factor Aero bike.
So there's like basically no information, but I immediately got messages about it when we posted, and it was like, what do you think of this bike? And I mean, I'm here for it. Like, why?
Yeah.
So over the weekend, I was riding a titanium bike, round tube, beautiful thing, and there's a place for that. I love it. Also, there's I think when people complain about bikes like this, obviously, this is going to be an expensive bike. There's no way around that. It's something like a Y1. It's an expensive bike. These are expensive bikes. And so obviously everyone hasn't ridden them. But when you ride a bike like this, like these sort of like uber aero fast bikes, it is addictive. I mean, it is.
You usually ride like shit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Don't know about that.
What's addictive about it?
They're great for dentists because they'll rattle your fillings.
So you take a fast aero bike. I have this route that I love to do, and I've done it a couple times recently because I've sort of banked. I wanted to know like how fast could I do it on different bikes. So I did it on a Bianchi Specialissima, and then I did on my NV Melee with all the Aero everything. And it's like fairly flat. It's about 104 miles, 5,000 feet of climbing. And it's just, sometimes it's a loop. So sometimes you're into the wind. Sometimes you have the tailwind. Hopefully it flips. But there are these portions, especially in the back, where it's just fairly smooth farm roads. And you're just like either into the wind or you have a tailwind. And it is so addictive to be on those bikes. You're just going flat or you're just going straight. You are like, if it's a headwind, you're absolutely attacking the wind. And you're just down in the drops, and it feels so smooth and it feels so fast. And if you have a tailwind, I mean, it's just insane how fast you can get if you can hold an aero position with a fast aero bike.
Josh, question for you. The front of this thing, it looks like it uses a slightly tamer version of the bayonet fork off their Hanzo track bike. So we've also got this prototype Cervélo S5 that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Alvin's going to tell us about it. But it also uses a new, it used a bayonet fork before, but this one is a slightly different version. So are you generally a fan? Like, would you buy a bike with a freaking bayonet fork? Look at that thing. Come on.
So, and the Y1 has a bayonet fork too.
Exactly.
And so is that Strom Rocked.
Yeah.
Too.
That one,
like,
I just talked to
real
them
life.
about.
It's not real life. Bayonet forks aren't real life for real
Why?
people.
Who cares? It doesn't. I don't think it matters for her. Like, my answer to that question is like, what difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference in terms of. It's just a matter of what does it do, and if they're like, oh yeah, that saves us 3 watts. It probably doesn't, but let's say 3 watts. You're like, all right, cool.
It makes fork replacement like $1 million, and it makes it size specific too.
That's all true, but that's problems for someone else to solve. How often have you replaced your fork on a modern bike? I know that was a thing in like 2010, 2005. That was the thing to do. But now you don't replace forks. You get your bike, you have your fork, and if you crash a bike and then need to replace it for that reason, that's like, it is what it is. And then in terms of like size specific, manufacturing, those sorts of things, not my problem as the writer or the writer.
It looks like you could fit a 3-inch tire up front too.
Yeah, so the BMC when that Team Machine R came out, yeah, they talked about they call it the Halo, right? I think.
Mm-hmm.
And just how the idea of getting the fork blades away from the wheel is faster, because I've seen companies actually take it in different directions. Either you get it in tight and you try to like make it one unit, or you just get it out of the way because you can't control the wind coming off the wheel that well. So you just move it away and let the wheel do its thing. Obviously, this is letting the wheel do its thing. It's a little like the I just want to throw this out there. The Hope Olympic track bike has some of that going on too.
Yeah, and then was it Jay Laverack and Lotus Cars like did some collaborations too on that as well. Dude, you've seen how that fork like freaking angles, like it comes all the way out.
Yeah,
like
I'm looking at the picture right now.
Like you can shove in like a whole, I don't know, like a country loaf of bread in there in between I don't know why, I guess I'm hungry. And then it like curves inward to the fork dropouts.
It's almost like a rectangle if you look at it. It's like it comes out so wide at the top.
There's no way it doesn't it didn't cost like an arm and a leg to produce, and there's no way it doesn't weigh a full leg. Like an average, I'm sure it's heavy, and I don't know, like Factor does their thing. I generally like Factor bikes for the most part. Like I don't know. I'm excited to
You know what,
get your take
Alvin?
on the bike
You
if we
sound
can
very
get you on it.
skeptical. I should be the one to review this one.
Oh, okay, yeah. Way to take one for the team, I guess. Like, way to take the arrow to the heart. Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I don't think I have the straight, fast, and definitely smooth roads that you would need to like feel good on this bike. I hate to say it.
I don't know.
I will say, I am super stoked to see brands kind of just like be able to push it. Shout out UCI. Yeah. Like the one thing that they're letting people do, I suppose, is like relaxing the rules for tube sets, and coming up with wild stuff like this. Like they're doing some crazy stuff with geometry, and that really intrigues me on this bike.
I saw a discussion recently about whether there should be pro bikes and not pro bikes, essentially, and kind of discussing. It was a little bit about this bike, and I'm like, just back off, people. Just like enjoy that you can ride a bike like this, and it is so crazy fast.
Let Josh ride the bikes he wants.
Exactly.
These things are like our job is to sit here and either make fun of it or like point out what's dumb about it or what we like about it. That's what we're going to do no matter what. But these things should always happen. Even though I bet you that bike rides, it probably doesn't ride nice. Wouldn't imagine, but that's not the point, is it? It has a job, and the job is to go super fast. And I bet it does that. And they're going to sell 3 of those in North America. That's great. It's not for that.
Maybe one will be to Josh.
Maybe it sounds
if
like
you buy it, dude, I'll be your biggest fan.
I want to take a bike. I want to take one of these bikes like this, and I keep asking every time one of those new Aero suits comes out, and they're like, "This is the greatest Aero suit ever," and it's been custom made by NASA. I'm like, "Can I get one?" And and then I want to go to like a weekly group ride, just like a Tuesday night ride with the the folks with mostly rim brakes, and just show up in a full Aero suit and like that POC helmet and one of these bikes, and just be like, yeah, what? It's just chill ride, right?
Watts.
That would be fuel to the fire, brother. Yeah. You better be ready for jokes, because I'll be there and lobbing them at you.
Speaking of saving minimal watts, Alvin, there's another new Aero road bike that showed up at the Dauphiné. This one ridden by Jonas. Looks like a new S5 is on the way. Tell me about this thing.
Yeah, so there was like a whole thing from a Visma riders Strava account earlier this year, which we'll link down below, like the story behind it. But there are basically things that are saying, oh, it looks like there's a new S5. And now at the Dauphiné, it looks like there's another S5. So it looks pretty darn similar to the current one. But the things that kind of stand out on it would be that it doesn't have like the handlebar. It's still like that Y-shaped handlebar that the S5 has had for the last little bit, but it doesn't look like it's adjustable for angle anymore. So I'm sure that cuts weight. It looks like the nose cone for that bayonet fork looks slightly different. The fork blades themselves look slightly different as well. Yeah. And those are kind of the key things that look different. But besides that, it looks like the S5 of the 2 previous generations.
Yeah, slightly more aero, and probably some claims about it saving small amounts of watts more than the previous bike, I would imagine, and slightly lighter, maybe.
Yeah. I would guess that's where they go with the bike, is if they can make it as aero but like a lot lighter, because that's one thing that's probably the main weakness of the S5 right now. Like Visma rides that bike all the time, and they're riding it with really lightweight wheels all the time. Like if they can cut weight at the frame and maintain aerodynamics, they could probably go deeper on the wheels and still have a similarly weighty bike. Yeah, I mean, unlike that factor, this bike looks basically production ready.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it's I don't know. Maybe we'll start seeing it more often.
Yeah,
I'm looking at your article, Alvin, right now that you put together about these aero bikes, and it's so good to just, you see them. You have pulled these pictures in where you have Pogi and Jonas. They're sitting on their 2 bikes, and the S5 versus the Y1. You see them right next to each other. Yeah. It's like such a cool picture, and it's really interesting to see the differences. The Y1 looks a lot thinner in that picture, but it also looks like sort of taller. The Cervelo looks a little more like almost that 90s melted car design look, like it's all rounded and sort of interesting.
Yeah, that is a good point, and I should say shout out to Cycling News and Road CC, because they were on the ground for this. So I was pulling from Getty Images. But the result is that we got that side by side with the Y1. Yeah, a lot less sharp. That is a really good insight, Josh. Good point there. Head aerodynamicist.
That's why he's got the title.
Yeah.
There it is.
This is a very aero-themed show, it turns out. Alvin, you've also been riding a new Polygon Aero road bike called the Helios. What is it? Why is it interesting? And what are some talking points?
Yeah, so Polygon, Indonesian company. They've been building bikes under the Polygon name for the last, I think, 30 years or thereabouts, at least 20. And they've been making bikes for other people in Indonesia as well. They came to North America, I believe, in the last 15 years or thereabouts, kind of making their name with attainably priced mountain bikes, I would say. Over the last few years, they've started doing road bikes. The Helios has kind of caught on around here, and people asking me about it because it has that aero road bike look, but you can get one with Ultegra Di2 for $4,700, which is thousands of dollars less than anything else. Or you can get, and sometimes it'll often be on sale through Bikes Online, which is the distributor here in the US and in Australia. And so Polygon hit us up and were like, hey, we have this new bike coming. Are you interested? And I immediately said yes. And this bike was pretty different from what I was expecting.
How so? Expand on that.
Yeah. So it's marketing copy. You have to take marketing copy with a grain of salt and pull out whatever information you can. Polygon says it's designed to both be a race bike and an endurance bike. And the justification for that is that it has an Aero seat post, the obviously Aero seat post. And the thing that's interesting about that is you can actually adjust the fore aft of it. So if you really wanted to have a 25 mil offset or something, you could do that. Or if you wanted to have a forward offset with that seat post, you could do that. Most bikes, they force you to buy different seat posts.
Of the seat post?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But that seat post also, they include an adapter, so you can run a standard round 27.2 seat post with the bike.
Okay.
That's
Pretty wild.
fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen an Aero road bike do that. I've seen a couple gravel bikes where they have like a D seat post and then you can run a dropper or something, but never seen it here. Yeah, standard 27.2. They also did like other things that weren't necessarily like endurance oriented. Like they moved away from one-piece handlebars. So it's a two-piece handlebar across all the models, and it's a Polygon designed handlebar.
Save some money, no doubt.
Save some money. I'm sure it saves some money like with building the bike too in the factories, but it makes the bike like more adjustable for sure. Like you can adjust, you can swap out, you can use whatever handlebar you want. That's pretty sick. They added a threaded bottom bracket. They added SRAM UDH as well, and they has clearance for a 35 mil tire. Pretty cool stuff, I think, just for like longevity and usability of the bike. And it's still fairly budget oriented. So I basically only got like 2 rides on it, I should mention.
First ride review is what we're calling it.
Yeah, very much a first ride review. 70 miles with like 5,000 feet of climbing, like 5 hours on the bike. Pretty thorough first ride, I would say. It rides fine. It's not like this super nuanced feeling or especially bright feeling bike. It rides fine. It's not going to jackhammer you. Comes with a 28 mil tire.
Yep.
It's okay. If I spent more time on the bike, I would have definitely wanted to try out like the round seat post if possible. But again, just too tight a time. Didn't have the time, unfortunately. There was one thing that was pretty weird about it, and I talked about it in the video, and I talked about it in the review, and hopefully this is where you were going, and you're going to ask me, Levy. I was riding a double extra small.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to ask. That's not your usual size.
I am a short king, 5'6", 1.68 m, but usually I'm on like a small for most of these brands. On Scott, I'm like on an extra small. This one, like the double extra small almost felt too long. And fortunately, like I don't know. That's pretty wild for someone like me.
Are they combining that with shorter stems? Like when you say pretty long, are you looking at reach numbers or are you looking at top tube lengths?
I'm looking at reach and I'm looking at stem and I'm looking at reach not only for the frame but for the bars. So the bars have an 80 mil reach, which is par for the course, I would say. It's got a 100 mil stem. And then I believe on my double extra small, the reach was like 380 or something like that. Which for reference, my personal 52 centimeter tarmac is the same. Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah. 375 reach, I should mention, on the double extra small.
It's almost like it's designed around a slightly shorter stem, but then didn't get a slightly shorter stem.
It got a 90 mil stem or a 100 mil stem instead.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
But so that frame reach is one thing, but they pair it with a frame stack that is about 25 to 30 mil shorter than most other brands with a similar reach. Most other race bikes.
I thought this was an endurance thing, though.
No. This is very much a race. I mean, this is supposed to be their race bike, but they want it to be like a race bike and an endurance bike in one. So,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't at all think of it as an endurance bike because it's not, especially when you look at the fit measurements for this.
Yeah. So the answer there is many headset spacers, I guess.
Many headset spacers. Most of these test bikes come like where I might have to chop the steer tube a little bit to get the bars where I need them to properly like evaluate the bike. This one, no. I had all the headset spacers, and that's happened to be where I would put the handlebars myself. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bummed out about that because that means like even smaller riders are probably going to have a hard time fitting on this bike too. That's the big reason why I'm bummed about this bike.
Review down the road at some point. You will share all your thoughts on that fit and some ride impressions.
Perhaps another build because I've returned the bike because it was a pretty quick turnaround. Yeah, I would want to try it out because I got the SRAM Red model, which is $9,000 US, which I would not buy. but I'd be very interested in an Ultegra or a 105 model because it gets the same handlebar, stem, frame, seat post.
Yeah.
And it comes in at $4,000 basically.
Yeah, that sounds like the bike. Yeah. That sounds like the smart choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's move away from tech. We've got that was all the new bikes, all the new gear. Alvin, we're going to talk Unbound. You and Hannah were at Unbound following the race. You followed the race in a chase truck for a lot of it, or at least some of it, I think. And it sounds like
all of
some sketchy ass shit went down in the pits, which really surprises me that in a bike race where people are coming in, that they're not shoulder checking and being super courteous about other riders around them. Can you describe the chaos? And for people who are listening, Caroline Diesendorf, she wrote a great article that's on the Velo homepage right now that kind of dives into all of the safety issues in the pits and other stuff going on at Unbound. So unpack it for us, Alvin.
Yeah. So first of all, shout out to her because she was in the car with us, with myself and Hannah. And then shout out to Will Matthews, extremely talented photographer, these types of things. And he was at the helm basically. And he was driving. Yeah. I mean, I think had a better look at the races than almost anyone because we were at several stops along the way and we were like, even like the cars that the media has access to at Unbound, like they might stop 3 or 4 times. We got, I think, 8 stops in total.
Oh, wow.
Between the men's and women's. Yeah. So we got to see it really unfold. And this men's race, like in the Unbound 200, at least the elite section, was more aggressive. Like everyone was kind of saying like this is more aggressive from the jump than it has been ever. Like a lot of road tactics, a lot of attacking one another. Spirit of Gravel, definitely not in that race.
Good.
You know? Yeah. Yeah. Good? All right.
I say good. It's a race.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
It's a race. When they get out of the neutral zone, you can attack if you want. You know, I don't see that being an issue whatsoever. But it sounds like once those pros came into the pits, it sounds like there were some issues.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it's kind of like I won't call it like a free-for-all because there are rules and stuff that you're supposed to do. But some of these riders have like their pit strategy dialed, like they're practicing what's going in. And we got a chance to talk with them about their pit strategies. Some of them are like in and out immediately. Some of them, it's less dialed is what I'll leave it as. Like,
yeah, okay.
It's like they're yelling at one another because people are just hanging out and there's not really like a strategy there, any practice. And yeah, and there are specific times, like there was one team that like there's not necessarily like this dedicated rule of like you need to stop and put a foot down and do this thing every time you go into the pits. And so some people, like a lot of these people, are just grabbing stuff as they're going and they're dropping things along the way. Like they're dropping old bottles, they're dropping their hydration packs. And some teams even had like one of the pit people like riding along to give them stuff, to the riders.
That was Carl Decker on the Giant team, handing stuff up, which he was allowed to do 100%.
Yeah.
It was in the rules because the rules say that you're allowed to have a spotter to guide your racer into the pits, which he was doing, and also giving him the stuff, which I guess didn't break any rules. But I read that there was maybe an issue with people doing that, team members doing that, and then like kind of getting in the way of the racers. And also the big thing is, I read in Caroline's article that you have these racers coming in, these pros coming in at freaking mock chicken, coming into the pits at doing the 200, mixing with normal people, peasants doing the 100.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to sound like a big dick, but like there's a whole range of people doing this race, and how someone with a lot of road experience comes into a situation like that is going to be very different than how like a mountain biker, like I'll call myself out, comes into a situation like that. Like as a mountain biker, you know, most mountain bikers I know who are on road bikes, when they do a shoulder check, they're going to go 3 feet to whichever direction they're looking. Do you know what I mean? Whereas a road rider goes straight. So you're mixing all of these things, people slowing down to grab things, people speeding up, people using it as a time to gain time on people, so not slowing down.
Yeah.
It sounds like chaos.
Yeah. So Aid Station 1 was interesting. Like, I can't quite remember if there's any I don't think there's anyone who isn't riding Unbound 200 that goes through Aid Station 1. But Aid Station 2, like, you have, as the Holy Spirit of Gravel Instagram account says, like, a bunch of normies, like a bunch of non-pros going through. And like, it's a 2-lane road. Like, there's cars going through. Like, we have a video on Velo of like this altercation talking about Carl Decker, like, and what happened there. And it's on the Instagram account. We'll link it down below. But like, I'd like to open this up to you guys too, but like, I can't help but feel kind of just like bad for like the people like looking to experience the spirit of gravel, like riding the 50, 100 to like whatever, but then they're just getting blasted by. Like, I mean, there's just these pros blasting by, trying to like go as fast as possible, and as they should be able to within the rules, right? But they're in the line of fire, basically, these non-pros, for better and for worse.
Yeah. My opinion would be that it is a race, and like, you're going to get dusted. Like, there's going to be close calls. It's inherently dangerous. But I don't think, having not been there, just looking at videos and reading Carolyn's article, it's almost like things have changed enough that it's not Dirty Kansas anymore. And I think the pit stop things have to change, and there has to either be like you either have to mandatory get off the bike and like walk into the pit zone maybe, or run into the pit zone, or maybe like the last thing we want in that shit show going on are racers grabbing musette bags in a field of amateurs and getting yanked off their bike. Like, in my mind, there should be no pit stops allowed. Even the 200s should be self-supported. Stop at a frickin' gas station or carry everything you need. There should be no support for any of this stuff. And then it would instantly solve it all. Unless you're an amateur.
Is that Josh inhaling? Sorry.
Yeah, Josh was...
that was the loudest
Josh
inhale, like, trying to be nonchalant.
Sounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a lot of opinions.
I'm actually not. I don't know that I disagree with Levy on this one.
Yes.
If you like, here, look, this is the bigger problem with this whole discussion, is that Unbound and just gravel in general, it started as this thing, oh, we're all friends, we're going to go out on our, on our road bikes, on our endurance bikes, and try to do something ridiculous. Well, now it's this huge thing, and in every aspect of it, no one is willing to be like, okay, it's new. This is different. This is not what it was. And we need rules, and we need regulations, and we need things to make sense. And you can even see it in, there's thing like the, you can't, it's so hard to even get to Unbound and stay somewhere and all of that, because it's just, no one is thinking anything about it. Like, they're just like, yeah, cool. It's just Spirit of Gravel. It's just now hours faster for the same distance. But like, Spirit of Gravel, it'll all just work out. It does not work out. We need rules.
No, I think the Spirit of Gravel needs to be banned from the Unbound. Just for Unbound. Just ban the Spirit of Gravel for Unbound. It's a race. What the hell do you expect, Alvin?
Okay, so are we defining in this very instance the Spirit of Gravel as like pros and non-pros mixing it up together?
I mean, that's one thing for sure. It's just I would define this discussion about the Spirit of Gravel, I would define it as this concept of not just acknowledging what is actually there. It is not a bunch of friends going out on the wrong kind of bikes to try to do something unbelievable. It is now professional racers who are incredibly fast, trying to get the absolute fastest time they can against other professional racers. That is not what it was before, and it has to be acknowledged.
Yep. It's also a bunch of amateurs doing the same thing, trying to do their best and trying to go their fastest too. Like, it's not just pros that don't have the so-called Spirit of Gravel.
Which is part of the Spirit of Gravel, is like the ability to inherently mix it up with the pros. And that's That's pretty cool. Like I do think, but I also like I don't know. I talked with a couple of folks, a couple of pros. Like, are you cool riding side by side with like people you don't really know? And for the most part, they're like, yeah, it's
Really?
fine. Like, I mean, yeah, they were cool with it. I also talked to them about like changing pits. So Gravel Locos has a mandatory 1 minute 30-second stop for the
Okay.
elites, basically. Um, Basically the response that I was getting is like, if you were to do that Unbound, how the heck are people going to be like keeping track of that? Like Unbound
Yeah, that's a
already,
good
like
point.
most of these events already have like staffing issues. Like how are you going to keep track of like, I don't know, of Keegan Swenson like staying 1 minute and 20 seconds instead of 1 minute 30 seconds at this stop, because there are just so many pros and wild cards and elites in general. And yeah, I don't know. I think the easy answer is that like the aid 2, because there's 2 aid stations for this Unbound 200. Like it just has to be in a different location than these pros, or than the non-pros. And
Yeah.
it can't be
I
on like a busy road like it was effectively. Like
I would agree that I don't, for me personally, I don't think amateurs riding with pros is a factor. Like I know that maybe the amateurs like the sounds of that, but also like these guys are just gonna blow by you at literally 50% the speed faster than you're going. Like who cares, you know?
yeah,
And I know you want to
yeah,
compare and stuff, but this is like a race, you know, like a real one. This is not fucking around anymore. This is like a real race where people are trying to go really fast. And I think that maybe there's still amateur pits, an amateur pit area, and I think they mandatory have to walk into it. I don't think those pros should be stopping for anything. I think
I
yeah.
they
would
I
should
say
think
if
that
carry
is
their
one
shit
solution.
and pace themselves.
if you
You
do
know?
that, you will slow it down, which
Yeah.
will change the way. Like there is an excitement for how fast it has gotten. I don't know that that's good or bad, but it has to be acknowledged that if you limit people like that, you will definitely slow down the race.
Yeah, I don't think that's good or bad, but I think the minimum the pits should be separated.
I will. It sounds like we're picking on Unbound here, but I was watching the second stage of the Dauphiné a couple days ago. Or maybe it was the third stage, second stage. Anyways, closed course, obviously, and somebody in a car just drove out onto the course and almost took out the brake. 3 riders. They were like this far from taking out these 3 guys in the break, and this is like one of the premier level road races in the world. You know, so these things are so complicated and so tricky that it's like there's so many things to go wrong, and Unbound has evolved and changed so much that like we're not picking on Unbound, but something has to change because people are going to get rear-ended, people are going to hit each other, and it's just going
Yeah,
to be a lot of road rash up in there, which is not good, or worse, which is not good. So
yeah, or bottles thrown at
yeah,
one another.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I just the last thing I would just want to say is like it was so intense. It's like some of the best parts of road racing mixed with the best parts of gravel racing was my experience, because like at least from the media side, I still like they've changed the access to the athletes to a degree over the last few years, but like the access is awesome, I
Yep.
would say, and that like we can't get rid of that for sure. But it made for great racing this year. I just think that the pits need to be like thought through, just maybe just reevaluated slightly.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's end there. I think have obviously solved the Unbound pit problem. Just don't let them pit. There, problem solved. For everybody that's listening, let us know in the comments what you think of the Unbound pit situation and all the chaos that's going on in there. And make sure to check out Caroline's article on the Velo homepage. And also, there's a whole bunch of tech stuff on there about all those new bikes and the DT Swiss suspension fork that Alvin rode. Speaking of tech, boys, next week there is a whole bunch of stuff coming out. We got new bikes. We have new, because I'll just say components, a whole bunch of stuff coming out. So that's all I can hint about right now. But stay tuned for next week because we're going to talk about it on this podcast. And make sure to go to the Velo homepage because there's going to be all the info about all the new stuff there as well. We'll see you next week, everybody.